Hi guys, today I'm going to talk more about budgeting. This is a follow-up to the video that I did 2 weeks ago in which I talked about budgeting for everything. If you happen to miss that video, I would recommend watching that one first so this will make a little more sense. So I will put a link in the description box for that video. When I did that video, I received a lot of great comments. Some of you wanted a little more information. I received questions like, how long does it take to budget? What do I mean by saying that we use the paper and pencil method? Where do we keep money? Do we have separate savings accounts for things like college and saving for a new house? Saving for a new car, or do we keep it all together? So I'm going to talk a lot about those kind of things. I'm going to show you just briefly how we do our budget. I received a lot of questions about where we put money aside. So I thought I would start first by talking about the things that are taken out of my husband's check. So those things aren't actually in our written out budget because they're already taken out. So the first thing that is taken out of my husband's check is money for retirement, and that goes into a 401k account. A lot of you might have that. I also have an IRA account. I got it when I was 18. Now, if you do not have money taken out of your check for a 401k, I would look into a retirement plan or a retirement account and just do your research on that, because any money that you put into an IRA, for example, you can deduct that from your taxes. But if you just put money into a savings account for retirement, you cannot deduct that from your taxes. So definitely look at your options. If you are saving for retirement, you definitely want to get a tax break from it. And then John has money taken out of his check for our health insurance. Part of that is for our insurance premium, and that automatically comes out of his check, and then some money is taken out and put into a health savings account. This is where we keep the money for our deductible on our health insurance and anything that the health insurance doesn't cover. So we do have dental and vision, but say Christian wants new glasses, we have a certain amount that we can spend, but we can use our health savings account money to make up any difference. So anything that isn't covered, we can use that money for. So that is where our health insurance deductible and money for anything that isn't covered goes. So it's there, and we have a card that we use that's sort of like a debit card that we can use at the dentist or the doctor's office, and it just comes right out of that account, so I don't have to worry about taking cash out and taking it with me to the dentist or anything. We just use that debit card, which is very nice, and that money is taken out pre-tax, so that's another benefit to having it set up that way. Also, John has money taken out for his life insurance policy, so that isn't on our written budget because it's automatically taken out, and it's taken out before we actually get his paycheck. I mentioned before that we have money set aside for a lot of things, and we have that in a savings account. So in that savings account, we have money for Christmas, vacation, our boys' school clothes, school fees, camp, and a number of other things, car insurance, and all kinds of things that I mentioned in the last video. We keep that in one account. He gets a big chunk of his income one time a year, so we just set all of the money for that aside. We just keep track on a piece of paper the amount for each thing. So school supplies, vacation, Christmas, and we just have a total. Once we take money out for a certain thing, so I just took money out for school clothes, I just readjust that amount in there and put it in our checking account to spend on school clothes. You can either, just transfer the money over to your checking account, or you can take it out and use cash, whatever you like to do. So all of that money is in one savings account, and we just take it out as we need it. We have another savings account for when we go to move or when we go to purchase a new home. We have money that John put aside from his check for a down payment, and we'll add more to that next year when he receives his larger commission check. And then money is put in there each month for things like furniture and whatever we'll need for our moving expenses. So that is in a separate account. So we just are putting money in there every month, and then once a year we put a larger chunk of money to pay for our down payment on our new home. You could put it all in one account if you're saving for something. We just happen to have two savings accounts, and it was kind of nice to keep it separate because money is constantly being deposited into that account, and it just made it easier to keep track of. Now, I know most of you probably aren't paid the same way that my husband is, with a large chunk of your income one time a year and then a paycheck every month. If you are setting aside a certain amount of money for things like Christmas, vacation, car insurance, and all of those things that I mentioned before, what you could do is just deposit it into a savings account. I wouldn't leave it in your checking account because it's a lot easier to spend. You could do that at the end of the month once you have all of the money set aside. You can just put it into your savings account each month and just keep track of how much you have for each thing. You can really just, do what works for you. We're all paid differently, but I would definitely recommend putting money aside into a savings account for things like Christmas and vacation and college and things like that. Speaking of college, the money that we set aside for our boys' college goes into a Michigan educational savings plan. So that is separate. That money comes out of our checking account once a month. I like using this because any money that we put into that account is tax deductible. Now, definitely do your research on that. Every state will be different. And as far as the way that Michigan works, you have to spend it on college. So if you put money in there, you definitely have to spend it on college. I know that, Christian is only 2 years away from college, and he has all the plans in the world to go to college, so I'm not really worried about that. But that's just one thing to keep in mind, and just do your research and see what's available. I did want to mention in my last video, someone was like, how in the world do I save for all of this? It can seem very overwhelming, and if you're just starting out and you're just trying to get your finances together, just know that it's going to take time. You're not going to start tomorrow and have all the money for Christmas this year and all the money for your kids' college that you should have been saving all along, and all of the money for your car insurance that's due in next January. It takes a little time. I would say the first thing that any finance person recommends is having an emergency fund. Definitely have money set aside in case something happens with your job and you can't pay your bills, or anything happens, you need money set aside. So you can definitely start making small improvements. I'm going to talk a lot more about ways to save money on your bills, ways to earn extra income, and I have a lot of videos that I want to do, but I'm going to just focus on the budget right now so that it doesn't become too overwhelming. Now I'm going to show you what a budget will look like if you just use paper and pencil like we do and keep it in a notebook. I mentioned this before that we just use a notebook and a pencil to do our budget, and it's very simple, and we've been doing that for a long time. I've mentioned different things to John, and he just wanted to keep it simple. You can always create a spreadsheet where it will just add the numbers for you, or you can use a different site where it will keep track of everything for you. I mentioned Mint, and when I mentioned that, I did say do your own research and make sure you're comfortable with that. I don't personally use it. It had very good recommendations, but definitely make sure you're comfortable before you, put your bank information and things like that in there. So you can do whatever works for you. I'm going to show you just a really simple budget. This is what works for us. Okay, so this is basically how we do our budget. This isn't our exact budget, but it's pretty close. We use a notebook and a pencil, very simple, but it works for us. And John felt more comfortable doing this because that's what he's used to. I'm sure he could figure out any program because he has to do a lot of stuff like that for work, but he's just used to it and feels more comfortable. And I want to make sure that whatever program we use, we're both comfortable with it. So you can simply just use a notebook and a pencil and write down all of your bills. And then next to it, I like to write in pencil the amounts of everything and then add it up at the bottom. And then write in all of the money that's coming in and the total. Now you'll see a couple extra things. This is for the month of August, and we took money out of our savings account that was set aside for school clothes, school supplies, and John's gym membership, which he pays once a year. And we included that in our budget, even though we had the money set aside, because it's in our checking account and we are going to be using it. We also included that in our income because it was money that was added into our checking account. I hope that makes sense. If you want, you could just simply take the money out for all of these things and use the cash. Some of the things that I bought for my boys were online. Some of them were at one store, some were, it just was easier to have it in our checking account so I didn't have to worry about having the cash on hand if they found a shirt somewhere while we were out. I don't like to bring a lot of cash with me. I just find it easier to have all of the money that is going into your checking account accounted for and all of the money that's going to be going out. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, as far as adjusting our budget, so once we pay a bill, we'll just cross it off and readjust our budget. We usually pay our bills once a week, so we're really just adjusting it once a week. As far as things like groceries and gas, as soon as I get home from the grocery store, I will readjust this amount and write the new one in. I was asked a lot if I use cash or if I use the envelope system. I have done that in the past, but I really don't feel comfortable carrying that much cash with me. I also don't like to have to remember to grab the cash if I'm going somewhere, because I definitely wouldn't want to keep all of that money with me all of the time for things like haircuts and date night and groceries and gas and things like that. Also, my husband, he gets reimbursed for his gas, but he has to pay for it first, and it just makes it so much easier not to have cash with him. Plus, he travels all over Michigan for his job and goes to some rougher areas, some really nice areas, and we just feel a lot more comfortable not having all that cash on us. So we do not take out cash and keep it in envelopes for these things. We keep all of our money in our checking account. I've mentioned before that we do use credit cards. I know some people do not agree with them and definitely don't use them if that's the case, or if you've had an issue with debt in the past. I would definitely not recommend using credit cards. We like to use them for things like groceries and gas because we get points. We've gotten cash back and things like that, but we always pay the balance. So I actually do our budget just like I'm spending cash. So, when I go to Trader Joe's and I do my large haul, I will take that money off just like I spent cash, and I just pay the bill in full when it comes. So I don't have a problem with going over by $100 because I'm using a credit card or anything like that. But if that is something that you could see as a problem for you, definitely don't do it just because that's what works for us. Do whatever works for you. You could use your debit card and just keep track of it when you get home, or you can do cash if you feel comfortable carrying that. I did include everything in our budget that is taken out. So even though I don't write a check or pay a bill for the Michigan Educational Savings Plan or my gym membership, which is also taken out of our checking account each month, I still include that because you want to remember anything that you are paying for. The things that we do go to our ATM and get cash out for would be things like our spending money, our boys' allowance, and a miscellaneous cash fund. We just get our own spending money and we can keep that in our wallet. Our boys have their own spending money, and then we have a envelope that we keep cash in. I mentioned this before. Sometimes, our boys will have a youth group activity and we don't know about it until, a couple weeks before, so we can't always plan for those things. So we just have money set aside. Sometimes, when they were younger, they would need a certain amount of money for a field trip or something like that, or they're going out somewhere and need money for whatever. So it just makes sense to have a little buffer. So we always keep track of, how much we have left. We cross off the bills as we pay them, and our total is always accurate. Hopefully I answered your questions. I am planning to do quite a few more videos in this series, and I was asked when I will be putting those up. I'm planning to have those up on Wednesday. If I happen to miss, it's just because life was crazy or something, but that is my plan. I plan to do these on Wednesday. I have a lot more information that I want to share. Thank you very much for watching.